treasure is where your heart is, right? So where your treasure is, where you allow your resources reflects your heart. And America's heart has shown that it clearly has a heart condition because all of our money is sent into war, all of our money is sent into violence and creating and perpetuating this harm to all people in this country.
Uh, right on, like spot on. Thank you for that. I do think that when you talk about violence, we were taught violence in this country by massa. And it seems to be like the ball keeps moving. Like violence is bad, except when it's white people, or violence is bad, except when it's against Black people. And there's where you have the mine F of the century because they have had, what, 399 years head start. They really know how to play this game well. And whether it's what the Congresswoman was talking about, 3 young rappers were murdered, whether it was Black on Black crime, or whether it's a police killing a Black person, we are being murdered on the streets of America. So I want to talk to you, Mayor Asia Brown, because you are the mayor of Compton, California. It's not the most diverse place. It is predominantly Black. So where do you stand as far as defunding or disbanding the police? Is it more what Reverend Stephen A. Green said, which is having yoga, meditation, intervening with like, oh, there's a marital spat. Let's do some counseling, having something in our community. I grew up mostly around Jewish people, and I have always said they are doing it right. But what they have at their advantage is that they're a culture and they have a language and it's a religion. We are kind of like orphans in this country. Yes, we can adopt their religion. We can adopt their way of doing things. We can adopt their holidays, but ultimately we're still prey to them. So, Mayor Asia, from your perspective, how do you see defunding or disbanding the police? Or do you have another option out there that we haven't thought about?
Well, so much has been said that I wholeheartedly agree with. So much power on this panel. First of all, defund the police is really a rallying cry to realign our values with how we spend our money and how we invest our resources. I also believe that law enforcement is only one aspect of public safety. We have really relied as a nation on law enforcement to address every single societal issue that we face or that we encounter as human beings. And so when I call 911, I shouldn't automatically be dispatched to a law enforcement officer if I have a domestic violence issue or if there's a mental health issue or other even domestic violence or other issues. The appropriate resource should be dispatched to that location if we are truly serious about the preservation of life. The second aspect is thinking about how our law enforcement officers train. When law enforcement officers leave their police academy, they're immediately dispatched to the jails because that's how they're introduced to our community. Historically, African American people are heavily over incarcerated, so that for many people is their introduction to interacting with Black men and Black people. And so that has to change. Then they're dispatched out to a community and then they're incentivized to actually over police and utilize excessive force. I'm a strong believer that until we address the pension system, until law enforcement officers are, number one, financially penalized for their conduct. Currently in the city of Compton, if the officer kills someone and the family rightfully so takes legal action and there is a financial damages awarded, the cities that actually contract with the sheriff's department, we pay. The sheriff's department doesn't pay the liability fund. That falls on the back of the taxpayers. And so you tell me what incentive these law enforcement officers have to change their conduct. Until law enforcement officers actually hold their own policies for their own personal conduct, they will not change. That's the bottom line. We already know cash is king, and until people's personal families and their children and their children's children are impacted by their conduct on how they operate on a daily basis, they will not change. And then going on to the fact about, we're talking about violence. I live and serve the community of Compton. We're actually now predominantly Latino and still heavily African American, but the source of violence, unfortunately, in my community is not wholly inflicted by law enforcement. We have Black on Black crime, brown on black on brown crime, and brown on brown crime. And so until we as Black people really get serious about healing from the generations of trauma that we have been inflicted, and that we reassign value to ourselves and our community, and where when we really have Black people stop killing Black people, then that will signal to everyone else how much we value our own lives. And in turn, I believe they'll in turn treat us differently. We can't continue to try to look for validation in places where, I mean, it just won't be found. I'm hopeful. I'm a person of God. I believe. I have faith. But at the end of the day, until people have their perspective shifted, then they're going to continue to act in the same manner. And so I can't hold my breath and wait a whole lifetime for people to finally recognize my humanity. What I need to do is in turn look internally, look at my own family, my own community, and assign value there. Because think about if we radically poured out love on each other, and Black people actually overcame the things that we were taught to divide each other, the lack of trust, the lack of being communal and working together, and we actually assigned so much value to one another by no longer killing each other and inflicting violence, and then also recognizing that there is a big component that entertainment and media plays into the perpetuation of violence against Black people. We can't continue to leave entertainers off the hook as well. We can't allow them to continue to be mouthpieces for perpetuating violence and these cycles of trauma, and then they have no repercussions or no responsibility to the violence that are in turn picked up by these kids in the community that are emulating what they hear and what they see. And so it's a whole continuum of violence. And David talked about this, which I have a lot of respect for Mr. Banner for a very long time, but he talked about the fact that when we think about young people and how they actually look at themselves and how they actually love themselves and value themselves, that is not only an inside job, it's an external job. And so we have to reaffirm our own people and really think about how we recreate our community. There's also comments about the Jewish community in Israel. I had an opportunity to travel to Israel, and it's such a powerful culture that this people was able to continue to manifest and continue to keep thriving in spite of all the external threats. But the common thread with them is that they have a mutual determination that is Israel over whatever their individual objectives are, that they understand that they all must invest into this cycle in order to get reciprocal equity, and that they can all rise and grow together, and that the strength of Israel is really the strength of their individual people and families. And so we have to come together as Black people, reassign value, make sure that we can actually provide some financial penalties to law enforcement officers that continue to violate our rights and extend the loss of life. And then also, again, be able to reinforce what is our mission as Black people, because we can't wait for America to recognize us, and we can't wait for America to provide us what we deserve. They haven't done it yet. And so, I'm hopeful that they will with reparations, but it's something that we have to do ourselves. We have to reinvest ourselves. We have to break the narrative of growing up and getting out the hood and actually move back and reinvest and start these businesses and create jobs and actually transform our communities. But it takes all of us making that commitment.
Woo, there was so much there. And I have to say, some of it caused conflict within me, because we keep hearing that, well, if Black people didn't kill each other, that is not an excuse for police to kill Black people on the streets of America. And then I keep thinking that there was this viral video. It was a white man, and he was talking about what Black people need to do, et cetera. And he said that we have a unique experience that nobody else shares. No, not Jewish people, not Native Americans. We were completely separated from our home. We don't have a language. We don't have religion. They literally stripped us from everything. What the Jewish people had was their religion, their culture. They got to keep it all, right? They didn't have hundreds of years of being bleached, literally, emotionally and spiritually and mentally. So we are coming from a very different place. And what this white man said in this viral video was, when two Black people meet each other on the streets of America, they don't know if their families were from warring tribes or the same tribe. The blood of our ancestors still pump through us. So we come from a very different circumstance that requires a very different solution. So I love where you're coming from, Reverend. We do need to start with love. We need to start with policy. We need to start with rethinking about how to love each other. We need to stop hurting each other. It's like 1,000 things that need to happen all at the same time, which is why we keep having this discussion. Where do we start? Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, take it away.
Thank you so very much. This is a very humbling conversation, but again, it is stark and it is real. I don't think you can find one pathway in the split in the road, because I think we are complex as a people. I'd like to think that we do have an identity. I continue to identify, even if it cannot be particularly pinpointed, with the continent. And I think all of us can, in some way, form or fashion, although it was a extreme break when we came to this place as slaves, we should never deny that just our basic skin color, there is a basic connection to the continent, which, I continue to interact with countries on the continent of Africa, and they have their challenges. We're fighting against police brutality in Nigeria and standing with the Nigerians who are now starting their own Black Lives Matter movement in Nigeria. So it may be that we are facing challenges on this planet that require a multitude of approaches. And I think this issue of love and expansion and looking at the kinds of persons that will come into your community, I won't call them law enforcement, but who comes into the community in time of need? How do we redefine that? But as a legislator, I have to say that there is a place for in the present time of this day, and maybe in the weeks and months to come, to have people advocate for passing the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Because everything that the mayor has said in terms of infrastructure is in that bill. And that is the focusing on cost somewhat comes from modifying qualified immunity. She's added another piece to it, which is the individual burden or responsibility that a law enforcement officer would have outside of the tax structure of the local community. And that is something that I'm listening to. So she's speaking to a legislator on that question. She has legislators in her own community. But this bill goes after chokeholds. It goes after no-knock drug invasion, if you will. It goes after separate investigations. It goes after racial profiling and policing that still teaches people excessive force, lack of de-escalation, and the duty to intervene. That's one piece. And then there is an opportunity for the community outside of this bill, even though we specifically put money in for communities to be heard, for them to speak up, for Mr. Brenner to be engaged in things that he may be wanting people to know. But I also believe, as a mother, that there is something to saying that the 3 rappers that I lost in my community, I would prefer for them to be alive. And there has to be some question of how we as mothers deal with that. 3 mothers have lost 3 sons. And I imagine that is happening across America. I don't play the blame game, but what I do say is, yes, we do need to step in on that. And then there's a whole corporate multi-billion, trillion-dollar entity that out of the output of George Floyd's tragic and heinous death, and his family is here in my community, and they have every day continued to press the point of love, but fighting for their brother, justice, and eliminating this lack of understanding of Black Lives Matter. So how do you match all of that? And I frankly believe that you got to let all of that move forward. HR 40, the idea of reparations is long overdue, and it speaks to restoration and repair, but it is also the large umbrella that can address what happens to ourselves, what happens to inner cities, what happens to the whole mantra of policing in America. And I think it clearly highlights and puts a spotlight on what we talk about, whether we can get rid of it or not, which is institutional racism and white racism. And the only thing I would say in this is that while you live, you got to keep working. And my answer may be different from some of those individuals, fine panelists they are, may be different. But if we're each working in our corridors, we're going to make some change. And there may be a point where it'll be so seismic that we'll look back and say, what was it 100 years ago or 50 years ago? I don't remember that because we made the seismic change that America needs to have. But we must get people continuing in their frustration to keep the pressure on, to keep the struggle going, to keep engaging in what we have right now. And this is, I think, with George Floyd, with reparations concept, and with understanding how we have to deal with police, is what we have to continue to press forward on.
Thank you, Congresswoman. And I respect both of you so much, Mayor Asia Brown and Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. It is a very powerful way. And what some people would say, it's a very powerful way to fight the system. But what some people would say is you're still playing their game that was meant to keep us out. So I want to go to you, Mr. David Banner. What is this? We're going to be our final statements here. What is your response? Yes, we want to take it to the politics because I firmly believe Black women lead. We needed more Black women in politics, more Black men in politics to keep pushing the envelope. But from the outside, Mr. David Banner, what are your thoughts? Final thoughts, actually. Can you unmute yourself?
What I'll say is the key to everything is for us to support our own communities. It says a lot when you look next door and see who you stay next to. It says a lot the schools that you send your kids to. We are one of the few communities on this planet that put our children in school so they can go work for the same people that oppress them. I always ask this question all the time. I always ask, would Jewish people send their children to go to school with Nazis or to be educated by Nazis or to work for Nazis? We all know that they wouldn't. So do you believe that they are better than you because we do it all the time? The way to solve every problem is self. You know, and Pastor, one of the things that I'll say too, I think one of the reasons why we never fight back is because in a lot of cases, our people still have that picture of Jesus in their head. If God doesn't look like you, then we're always forgiving that picture that we see in our head. When I first became conscious, and I knew for a fact, there's no way they're gonna hide Jesus amongst a whole bunch of Africans that were darker than Acon and he be white. Even the description that they have in the Bible is not of that. So psychologically, I'll say this in closing. One of the reasons why I believe a lot of Black people are afraid of true freedom, and that's loving self, living amongst each other. Stop looking for somebody else to do something for you. Stop looking for a Jesus in the sky. I believe the story of Jesus was not that he was supposed to bear your cross, but he was going to show you how to bear your cross while he was on earth. But people don't want to fast for 40 days and 40 nights so they can walk on water. Our community is our cross to bear. Them folks ain't never cared about us. I don't care if it's the left wing or right wing. We talk about Trump all the time, but Joe Biden has been a part of every major crime bill that has affected our community since the latter part of the 70s up to the the bill that Clinton passed in 94. He has physically helped put 600,000 Black males in jail. I got a problem with him too. So the thing is if we are truly going to engage in any of these processes, it has to be for self. That's one of the things that I salute the mayor for. Until we put people that have a vested interest in our community, it'll never change. Until we are willing to heal our people, educate our people. We talk about politicians and rappers, but we got Black teachers in Black school and Black public schools or schools that are predominantly Black that still teach our people that Christopher Columbus discovered America. I think that's just as bad. So The truth is nobody is coming to save you. A white man ain't coming out of the sky with blue eyes to save every problem that you have. Until you're willing to live and die for your children, your community, it will stay the same. Thank you.
Oof. Well, obviously, we are not going to come to any succinct conclusion today, nor should we. It is a problem that has been festering for a very long time. We're going to go back to Carl Davis, who we missed in the beginning. Carl, if you can unmute yourself, I want you to let the people know about your organization. Take it away. Nice to have you here.
Thank you so much, Tamika. First, I want to thank the Aspire TV gentlemen. I want to thank the Aspire TV channel, Melissa and her entire team, and the Revolt Team TV on the partnership with the Future of Black America and 88 Chump to bring the Future of Black America to their TV audience. The Future of Black America tonight has provided a platform for African American leaders to engage, strengthen, and educate Americans on issues pertinent to the vitality of Black communities. This year's theme, the New Covenant, offers thought leaders, as you heard tonight, panelists, viewers, and all of America an opportunity to engage in an honest dialogue on the lived experience of Black America and offer solutions to community concerns. The Future of Black America has featured African Americans who lead constructive dialogue to the economic, education, faith, and social justice issues that impact the daily lived experience of Blacks in America. Tonight, we have the opportunity as we gather to discuss pertinent issues relevant to the vitality of our Black community. Our theme, the New Covenant, the George Floyd Social Justice Project, has motivated and influenced us to be proactive going forward. George Floyd's murder electrified the nation and finally shifted America's focus to the unfair police practices that target us. We talked about eliminating chokeholds and no-knock policies. We've gotten radical and talked about defunding and disbanding police. But what should the future of policing in America look like? What's next for police reform? How do we get politicians and police leadership on board? And finally, does America exist where we don't fear for our safety when we encounter cops or when we take on the criminal justice system? Wise principles of government and good laws can do and have done much for the benefit of the Black community, but nothing is more fatal than the overestimate their power. To do so tends to breed in mankind the most deadly of all diseases, which has afflicted society, the infection of racism, the corruption and epidemic of the killing of Black men and women, the layers of self-dependence, and the weak impulse to find help from government entities that should grant all men life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness at every step upon the road of life. We came tonight to realize that our programs, our progress together is neither instinctive, routine, spontaneous, nor inevitable, but every step we take must engage strength and educate America.
Thank you, Carl.
And more importantly, Black America. Every step toward the goal of justice, fairness, integrity, and lawfulness requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle, the tireless exertion and passionate concerns of dedicated individuals. Let us accept the benefits gained by those who have paved the way for us, but let us continue to look forward to the future improvements. But those improvements must be attained as the improvements of the past have been obtained. Only through hard work, dialogue, education, social reform, dedication, and commitment generated by and through Black leadership and the Black community. Our demanding spirit compels us to be self-controlled, competent, and willing to govern our impulses by the rule of declaring principle. And more than that, we must have a love for liberty, not only for ourselves, but the liberty for others, our brothers and our sisters. All of us have felt a knee on our neck and have felt the blood rush to our heads. We have felt our heart beats much faster, but we felt disgusted and hated, yet we still have the spirit of love. That spirit excludes hatred of others, no matter their race or ethnicity. That spirit excludes a desire to abuse, to vilify, or destroy. So let us work together, stay together, pray together, and overcome together in making this old world a new and better world. That's, my friend, is the reason I welcome you all here tonight And the reason I have the honor, great honor, of introducing Mr. Herbert Mouton, one of the founders of 88 Trump, an organization established in honor of their childhood friend and Jack Lake Yates football team member, Mr. George Floyd. Herbert Mouton.
Thank you, Carl, for that magnificent introduction and welcoming to the program. I'd like to thank Spot TV for allowing us to share this platform with them. Just a little bit about the friendship with George Floyd that I had. Friendships determines alliances. Alliances which results from friendship developed and maintained may bring disagreements and perils, but never hate, distrust, and dishonor. Friends may not always see eye to eye, but camaraderie, bonding, and unions will always be sure, honorable, and upright. And that is how George and I will throughout our lives. We are told that greater love has no one than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. I am here today because George Floyd's life was laid down, not because it was just, not because it was fair, but because of bigotry, hatred, and disparities and inequalities. In reality, of all us are children of God and are born free and equal. But how many truly find meaning within those words? When one is judged by the color of his skin and the other is presumed not guilty based on the color of his skin tone, it is difficult securing many of life's basic prerequisites that are granted by the Constitution and God Almighty. I know today that George Floyd and my friendship with him was rock solid. Not only were we teammates, but we huddled together on and off the field. We called plays in life of what we wanted to do, what we wanted to accomplish, and how we would go about fulfilling our dreams. We watched the clock because time was winding down as we grew older, and we both made sure that life would not catch us off sides. Because being of running with the wrong crowd, we took our positions as friends, as competitors, and as brothers. We fought not only in the trenches of life against the powers that were destined to hold us back, but against the people who enforced those unjust powers. With all of my soul, I believe in the powers of light against the powers of darkness. Sometimes these powers are arrayed in a contest, a game as broad as a football field. Sometimes they may arrayed in a conflict on a street corner that embraces the whole nation. But in the end, they include all nations and all humanity. Always in one form or another, justice always prevails, and the people advance upon the foundations of hope. And in the end, the people of goodwill always triumph.
Thank you. We're going to close out. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, you have the last word. Please unmute.
Nika, I think this was a very powerful moment, and I feel your sincerity in which way should we be going. And I hope as those who have had this opportunity to hear this vigorous discussion from passionate, not only spokespersons, but persons who are deeply embedded in our community, will take away several things. One, as a people, we are multidimensional with a common heritage triggered from our respective heritage. But we must find love, we must find our anguish and find action. And yes, we must find a way to deal with this in the current structure of laws and the current structure of change. I'd like to be a change agent, and I hope from all of this comes the pathway for being a change agent. And I do know that since it was mentioned about the presidential candidates, I would hope that everyone who has the power within themselves to love themselves will get out and vote in this upcoming election. And I do hope they ask the hard questions. Some of our candidates indicated that some of the things they were involved in were mistakes. But I can truly say that knowing personally Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, that their mind and their hearts are intertwined with change. And I hope people will look and understand, but as they make their own decisions, I hope they will also love themselves and fight for their people and fight for their children and fight that we make a difference. I'm going to be fighting with them for a powerful and seismic change.
Thank you. And I do respect everybody's opinion here. David Banner was talking about how Joe Biden was guilty as well. And I think what we have to understand is that we're all being conditioned. We're all being conditioned from news that we're scary, they're innocent. And I can't fault, well, I can fault him for what he did in the past, but he also had 8 years under the tutelage, I like to call it, of Barack Obama. And I can only hope that he is a changed, shifted, evolved man. Am I voting for him because I'm passionate? No, but I'm voting against the man that is in the White House. And I think a lot of people feel that way. Thank you guys so much for being here. We have lost Mayor Asia Brown because we are over time. We have lost Mr. David Banner, but they were both incredible. Thank you, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee and Reverend Stephen A. Green. I'm honored. Thank you, Carl Davis. This was an incredible conversation that obviously we haven't even scratched the surface. It must continue until we can really fortify our angles and start loving ourselves, start voting like our lives depended on it, because it does. Stop demonizing being responsible for our own community. We have a lot of things we need to shift, but if any time is the right time to shift, a pandemic is. So thank you very much. Thank you for you guys who are tuning in, and the fight goes on. George Floyd! 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 He was born in North Carolina. He was heaven sent. Whoa. Grew up in Houston. He's been busy ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know change is gonna come. Yes, it will. Oh, it's been too hard living, but he didn't have to die. George Floyd didn't hurt nobody. He was trying to comply. It's been a long time coming, but I know change is gonna come. Yes, it will. He didn't want no trouble. They had him down on the ground. It was all over $20. Why did the laws even have to come around? It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Yes, it will. Listen, I can hear him call his mother, saying, "Mother, help me, please." 'Cause he knew every time that he called his mother, mother would immediately get down on her knees. He said, "I can't breathe, I can't last for long." Now he's resting in peace. Somehow we gotta carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. I said a change gonna come. I know a change. Change gonna come. Yes, it will. Change gonna come.
the world. Wait, you know. He did what?
Daddy changed the world.
Daddy changed the world.